All right, what's going on, guys? Reed Orlando here with another episode of Reidspn Sports Podcast. Want to first start off by saying, yes, I am still under the weather. I don't know if it's possible for a 4-day hangover, but I guess when you go to Ocean City, Maryland, you go to Secrets 3 days in a row, it is possible. Let me just start off by saying that is the craziest bar in the United States. I don't care where you are. I've never been to a bar like that in my life. Between the day parties where you're allowed to go in the water, and sit on those little stools, those metal stools that they have over there. The one complaint I do have about those stools in the water, however, is I clipped my fucking heel on those things at least 6 times, and now I have a bruise on it. So that's the only downfall of that place. But besides that, Ocean City, Maryland's a great place. Secrets, I've been hearing about it for years now. Finally got to experience it. Fager's Island was another one that was really fun. But overall, Secrets is by far the best. They had two live bands playing the Saturday night that we went. Overall, just an unbelievable experience. So many people there. So many ways to get in trouble out there. But anyways, I thought I'd first start off this podcast with just going over some of the MMA news. We had Josh Emmett scored a huge knockout of Mirsad Bektik in the first round. Home field advantage for sure. That definitely played dividends into this card with the Team Alpha Male fighters. We had Uriah Faber knocking out, TKOing Ricky Simon in the first round, 45 seconds in. Uriah Faber, for taking a 2-year layoff, he looked pretty damn good, and he was saying that I'm more open to fighting TJ Dillashaw than I am Cejudo, or anyone really at bantamweight, and that's more of a legacy fight for him. So maybe he'll sit around and wait for TJ to come back. TJ's got at least a year and 8 months left to fight, so maybe he'll take a fight in the interim, but he still looks great, Uriah Faber. Uriah he's the ageless wonder, man. He's always going to be in that top 5 no matter how old he is. Phenomenal win over a young hot prospect in Ricky Simon. Ricky Simon was no joke. I actually picked Ricky Simon to win this fight beforehand. But yeah, Uriah Faber just shocked everyone, as he's been doing his whole career, unless it's a title fight, because he typically loses those in the UFC, or has lost every single one of these UFC title shots, which is a nice little interesting fact. But anyways, just wanted to go over some MMA news. Wrote a couple of little things down that I thought were newsworthy and were interesting to talk about. First things first, Dana White saying that Henry will defend his flyweight title, or he will have to vacate it. So it's looking like he's going to have to face Joe Benavidez. Now, the timetable for Henry Cejudo's return, I believe, is another 6 to 8 months, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe Benavidez is going to sit around and wait for the title, or maybe he'll take a fight in the interim just to keep fresh. But that's a really good fight, and those of you that don't know, Joseph Benavidez actually beat Henry Cejudo the first time they fought. It was a very close fight. They did that Ultimate Fighter season 19, maybe they did that together. But yeah, it was a close fight. Joe Benavidez won, so I think a rematch is imminent. It's certainly necessary for that division to keep moving forward, and I'm glad that Dana White's making him fight at flyweight. It shows that the division is still alive and well, and it shows the division is still going to keep going on for at least another year. So let's see what happens with that. Jermaine Durandame, after her phenomenal win over Aspen Ladd. Let me just first start off by saying this, that I don't think the stoppage was too quick by any means. Herb Dean did the right thing. I didn't see Aspen Ladd getting up anytime soon. And you know what? It was an appropriate decision. Jermaine Durandame absolutely won that fight. I don't see how Aspen were to come back from that. We've seen crazier things in MMA, like Chuck Congo versus Pat Barry. But 90% of the time, 99% of the time, I should say, you're not going to recover from a shot like that. And Jermaine was hitting her from top, and it didn't look great for Aspen Ladd, so it was smart. Save her a little bit more health. Save her health, I should say. So let her live to fight another day. But Aspen Ladd was on a pretty impressive run before getting stopped by Jermaine Durandame. Now, Jermaine would be willing to fight Amanda Nunes again. Originally, when they fought back in 2013, it was the fight for the troops. She lost via TKO from elbows. It was a pretty brutal knockout. But that's an interesting fight. I think Amanda would beat her again, but I really just don't know what's next for Amanda at bantamweight, unless she fights that girl, Caitlin Vieira, who's another Brazilian, who's on a tear right now. She's 18-0, I believe, or 18-1. So that would be an interesting fight. Now, the next thing we wanted to talk about was Darren Till is hinting at a move up to middleweight. I think it's about time for him. He lost his last 2 in a row. He lost to Woodley via knockout, via TKO, I should say, and then just got absolutely starched by Jorge Masvidal. So I think for him to wait around at welterweight, to kill himself to make that weight, to maybe get a shot at the title within the next year and a half, 2 years, because he does have to work his way up. It's just not worth it. At middleweight, he gets a fresh start. And we've seen fighters move up in weight classes and have really benefited from it. For example, Daniel Cormier. Another example of that would be Why am I drawing a blank on it? Oh, Michael Chiesa. Michael Chiesa, since moving up to welterweight, has looked phenomenal. He looks like a top 10 contender in that division, if not top 5. Everything that Michael Chiesa did in his last fight against Diego Sanchez was beautiful. He flowed into everything. He was just in a total flow state, and it was beautiful to watch. Now, on the other end of that, fighters that are struggling to make weight and decide to move up a weight class, it could also not play to your benefit. Now, for example, Max Holloway, when he moved up to featherweight to fight Dustin Poirier, his power didn't translate over, and people always thought that Max Holloway would, his fighting style would translate well up in a weight class because he is a big, he's a big featherweight. But it really didn't translate all that well. His power didn't carry over. And another example for that would be Kevin Lee in his last fight against Rafael dos Anjos. That power didn't carry over well. But I think other things are playing a factor into the way Kevin Lee is fighting. Over a year ago now, Robert Follis has died. He's just trying to figure it out, Kevin Lee. But sometimes it's beneficial for you to move up a weight class, and sometimes it's not beneficial. And it's better for you to get the right diet and to stay at your weight or to go down a lower weight. It all just depends on the fighter. But for that example, I think that Darren Till would definitely benefit at middleweight. I think his power would certainly translate over. He does have a hard time making that weight, so I think it's a right call for him to do it. Now, Jason Knight is out of his bare-knuckle fight against the wild Leonard Garcia. That would have been a war. Hopefully they reschedule that. Those of you that don't know, Leonard Garcia, when he was in the UFC, he would just throw. He was a good fighter, but at times, well, I would say most of the times, he would just lose all his technique and he would just brawl. And that's what made Leonard Garcia so fighting, and that's what so fun to watch, and that's what makes him fighting in bare-knuckle boxing so interesting, because he just throws all Recklin Bandman to the side, and he just throws. And especially against a guy like Jason Knight, which we saw him in bare knuckle fighting against Artem Lobov, I think it would be a really, really fun fight. Definitely could potentially ruin both of their careers as professional fighters. I mean, I don't know how many fights you could take like that, like when Jason Knight fought Artem Lobov. I just don't know how much damage you can really take in the bare knuckle arena. Especially to the extent to where his face was destroyed the last time against Artem. But that would have been a really good fight for the fans. I'm not all that into bare-knuckle fighting. In all honesty, I find it a little brutal. But that's something I would have watched. Not going to lie, I love Leonard Garcia, and it's perfect for him, bare-knuckle fighting. Next, Bellator announces a 16-man featherweight Grand Prix with Darren Caldwell, Patricio Pitbull. And in the first round, Patricio's facing Juan Archuleta. And let me just say this. Juan Archuleta is legit as fuck. He is one of the top featherweights in the world. And I don't know why Bellator gave their champion that fight right away in the opening round of the Grand Prix. It's very interesting. If he's able to get by that Patricio, I think he could win. But it's a really tough fight against a guy like Juan Archuleta. Juan Archuleta is another one of the training lab guys who trains with, why am I drawing a blank on his name? Sam Calavita, who's been training David Taylor before TJ tested positive for steroids, him, Aaron Pico. It's a stable of studs, and he's on the upper echelon in terms of sports training and sports performance. And I got to be honest with you, I think I'm going to take Juan Archuleta in that fight. Darren Caldwell, he's coming off that loss to Kyoji Horiguchi in the last fight in Bellator for the 135 strap. Just not a good matchup for Darren Caldwell, Kyoji Horiguchi. When they fought up in Rizin, he beat Kyoji Horiguchi beat him. But I could see him definitely winning the tournament at featherweight. But overall, I think that's going to be really interesting. I love the Grand Prix. I just wish they would move by a little quicker, because Bellator at times it tends to linger a lot longer than we expected. It turns into like a 6 to 8 month ordeal. I'd like this to be a little bit shorter. So we'll see what happens there. Now, in more Bellator news, we have Andrei Koreshkov. He's fighting with Lorenz Larkin. They're headlining Bellator 229 in Temecula, California. That's an interesting fight, because these guys are going to throw all sorts of interesting spinning techniques. I expect this to be a very interesting technical striking matchup. Now, both of these guys have the ability to spin and throw a lot of power behind their kicks and their punches. Andrei Koreshkov, he has that nasty highlight reel KO with that spinning back kick over... Not exactly sure, but he hit him right in the liver and he dropped. It's definitely one of the highlights in terms of Bellator's knockouts. So that should be another really good one. And this weekend we have Rafael dos Anjos versus Leon Edwards. Ben Rothwell makes his return. He's fighting Andrei Arlovsky. And who else is fighting on that card? I'll pull it up for you guys right now. I'll pull it up. I think there's some other really interesting matchups. Oh, okay. The other one that's really interesting to me is we have, why am I fucking drawing? Oh, Dan Hooker versus James Vick. That is a really good fight. Both these guys are coming off of wars and both coming off of losses. James Vick coming off that loss to Paul Felder in a really interesting striking matchup. And Dan Hooker, I mean, he got the shit kicked out of him by Edson Barbosa. And I picked Dan Hooker to win that fight. Dan Hooker is tough as shit. He's certainly one of the tougher lightweights in the world, if not the toughest. That guy can take a shot. So that should be a really interesting fight. I'm going to do a breakdown of Rafael Dos Anjos versus Leon Edwards. Within the next couple of days, I'll get that going. But thanks for tuning in to Reidspn Sportscast. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to Reidspn on Instagram. I try to come out with more news topics throughout the week. Been a little lazy these last couple of weeks on Instagram. Just been going on vacation, and then last week secrets. Like I said, 4-day hangover. Haven't really been able to post anything. Haven't really been able to do anything except work and go to the gym, trying to get everything back on track, sweat out all the toxins from Secrets. If you've never had a bamboo drink at Secrets, you're doing it all wrong. It was like $6.25. That was the other thing about Ocean City, Maryland. Everything was relatively cheap. It was not an expensive weekend. The rooms were the most expensive part of it all. But those drinks get you really, really fucking drunk, man. It was unbelievable how drunk I got from them. The bamboo drinks, I think they put in 3 to 4 different rums, and for those of you that don't know, they brew their own rum in Secrets. It's a really interesting place if you ever want to check it out, and if you're ever in that area. So definitely giving a lot of praise behind Secrets right now. Maybe they'll give me a sponsorship. Who knows? I'll shout them out a couple more times. But anyways, thanks guys for listening. Appreciate it.